afternoon, everyone. So today's session will be taken by me and one of my colleagues, Himanshu Chadda. So this happened coincides with month of introduction of GST. So it has been 3 years since GST has been introduced. So the first section we have in today's presentation is how were 3 years of GST? So, so summing up 3-year experience till now, I think uh, uh, on a positive side, GST has subsumed all previous indirect taxes. There is no cascading effect of taxes for the companies. There are standard laws and compliances all over the country, and one of the important aspect is that all compliances are electronic or digitized. But having said that, GST has a lot of things to work upon also. The law is unclear. Law is not properly drafted on various aspects. The government keeps on bringing various amendments to the law. Multiple circulars have been issued. The whole advanced ruling mechanism, it has created a total chaos because all the rulings are revenue oriented. So starting with 3 years of GST, I think the experience has not been so great till now, and it seems to be a work in progress. So just for everyone's information, we have listed out some of the unclear issues under GST law, and secondly, various opportunities or various things which are often missed by the taxpayers. So starting with first 3 years of GST, I'll just repeat because there was some disconnect. The first 3 years of GST on positive side, GST has subsumed all previous indirect taxes, removed cascading effect of the taxes. The compliances are standardized across the states. The filings, etc., are electronic. So there are a lot of positives, but still GST seems to be a work in progress because the law is very unclear. It has not been drafted properly. Very frequent amendments, circulars, etc., are being issued. This whole advanced ruling mechanism is revenue oriented, which has created utter confusion under law. So a lot of things government need to do in GST. Otherwise, on the verge of third anniversary of GST, I can only say that we are looking up to 30 years of litigation only. So based on our experience, what we have often seen is that uh, uh, there are a lot of unsettled issues in GST, as well as there are a lot of things which we saw often being missed by the taxpayers. Unsettled issues starting with last date of filing Tran 1, whether old cesses can be carried forward or not, a clear distinction between composite and mixed supply, taxability of discounts, incentives, whether GST is payable on liquidated damages, whether reverse charge mechanism on ocean freight is constitutionally valid, who is an intermediary, various computation or procedural aspects relating to inverted tax refunds, validity of conditions for availing ITC, like whether tax has been deposited by supplier, etc., or not. Then based on our experience, various common misses which we see is that whether the common expenses from head office have been cross-charged or not, payment of GST on employee recoveries, reverse charge GST on government services is often mixed, ITC on FOC items when given under schemes, whether ITC on construction expenses can be availed, travel, accommodation related credits, credits on employee related expenses, whether CSR activities, they are eligible for refund. In respect of exempt supplies, whether any reversals have been done or not. So these are often things we see which taxpayers miss, and on the left hand side are the red ones where the law is not clear or the validity of law itself is challenged. So we need to see this ride has been roller coaster till now and how it unfolds, but presently there's a lot of things which are unclear under GST regime. So we start with a poll question. So the first poll which we are launching today is getting your experience about GST. So you may be able to see the poll question. So the poll question is, has GST turned out to be good in simple tax as expected? So you have three options: yes, no, and not sure. So we'll wait for 10 more seconds. Please participate and give your experience with GST till now, whether GST has turned out to be good in simple tax or not. So we are closing the poll now. And the results, as expected, 26% of the participants feel yes, it has been good and simple. 57% feel that it was not, and 17% are not sure, which also I will treat as no only. So moving ahead, so the next section which we'll be covering today is certain relaxations considering COVID-19, and this we covered last time also because the government has made many relaxations in date of filing of returns, bonds, etc. So today we'll be quickly doing it. So basically we'll be covering our last roundup slides only, and we'll just highlight what changes have happened in last 1 month on this. So firstly, coming to GST returns, GSTR 3B. So the government initially provided for these dates for filing GSTR 3B from February to June 2020. And if so, two set of dates were provided. If GSTR 3B is filed within a particular date where no interest and late fee was applicable, and this was basically an extension of 15 days. And then there was an extended date where 9% interest was applicable. So no change has happened. The only thing government has clarified is that if GSTR 3B is filed post June 24, 2020, 18% interest means the normal interest will apply only for period after June 24th. So this is a big departure and a positive step as compared to earlier, because earlier the law provided that the interest of 18% will apply from beginning. Now they have said that post June 24th only 18% interest will apply. With regard to GSTR 1, for February, no change. For March to May 2020, the date was June 30th, which has been extended to dates staggering from July 10 to July 28th. For June, the date was July 11, which has been extended to August 5th. Again, for GSTR 1, GSTR 3B, as far as late fee is concerned, if the returns are filed by above dates, then late fee is not applicable. Otherwise, late fee will apply for full period since beginning. Another change which government has done is that earlier GSTR 3B verification could have been done through EVC. Now this has been extended to GSTR 1 as well. As far as other returns are concerned, GSTR 6, 7, and 8. Earlier for March to May 2020, the date was June 30th. Now for March to July 2020, the date is August 31, 2020. For ITC 04, earlier for quarter ending March, the due date was June 30th. Now, both for quarter ending March and June, the due date is August 31. So in subsequent slides also, you'll see that for many compliances, the date has been extended to August 31. E-way bills, the due date was June 30th. For e-way bills of March 2020, no change in this. For LUT of 2020-21, date of June 30th has been extended to August 31. Refund applications where last date was between March 20th to June 29th. The last date was June 30th. Now, both the period has been extended from March 20th to August 30th, and even the date has been extended to August 31. Export of goods by merchant exporter, where expiry of 90 days fell between March and June. The last date was June 30th. Now, similar to other extensions, if expiry of 90 days fall between March to August, the due date is August 31, 2020. Similarly, receipt of goods from job worker, where time limit is 1 year and 3 year for inputs and capital goods respectively. Both the time period and due date has been extended to March to August, and the due date has been extended to August 31. Moving ahead, as far as Rule 36(4) compliance, no change. So for February to August, the cumulative adjustment needs to be done in GSTR 3B of September 2020. Now, the condition of making payment to vendors within 180 days. If 180 days fall between March to June, earlier the due date was June 30th. Now, both the periods, March 20th to August 30th, the due date is 31st August. ITC reversals for exempt supply. For financial year 1920, post 31st March 2020, interest was applicable. The due date was June 30th, which stands extended to August 31. For department to issue any notice, order, etc., or for SSC to file any appeal, if the last date was falling between March to June, the due date was June 30th. So similarly, now the last date falling between March to August, due date is August 31. Now, as far as COVID-19 is concerned, taxpayers and companies are making a lot of procurements which are relevant from COVID-19 perspective, and many of them are mandated under law. So we have made this slide to give our perspective as to whether ITC will be eligible on these procurements or not. So firstly, MHA has issued 5 orders at different points of time. So in the slide before you, you can see first order starting from April 15th and the last order 5, which is applicable till July 31st. So what are these common procurements of goods or services? Starting with thermometer guns. So this was mandatory under all the orders. ITC is eligible on these items. Sanitizers, again, this was mandatory under all the orders. In our view, you can take ITC on the same. Chemicals for sanitizing workplaces, it was mandatory, ITC is eligible. Masks, it was mandatory in all the orders, ITC is eligible. Now coming to medical insurance. So in the first order, this was mandatory, whereas this is not mandatory under the subsequent orders. So medical insurance is specifically barred under section 17(5) unless it is a statutory requirement. So as far as first order is concerned, which is spanning from April 15 to May 3rd, if you have got insurance policy for employees, the medical insurance one, and if it has been taken during this period, then you can claim full credit, even if the validity of the insurance is 1 year or so. But for the subsequent period, if you have taken any policy, because it was not a statutory requirement, therefore ITC is not eligible. Same holds true for transport facility also. So order number 1 provided that the company should arrange transport facility for bringing workers from outside, whereas it was not a mandatory requirement under MHA order, subsequent MHA orders. So similar section 17(5) provisions are relevant for uh, transport facility also, that credit is available only if it is statutory requirement. Here we are not talking about buses, etc. Here we are only talking about cars, etc., whose sitting capacity is less than 13 only. So for the procurement of services in the first period, you are eligible to credit and not thereafter. This transport facility requirement was changed in the subsequent MHA order. So the language was changed, was a transport facility if public transport not feasible. So during the second period, it was made mandatory, and it was not made a mandatory requirement from order number 3 onwards. So same rationale will apply for second period. If the companies have engaged transport facility for employees, they can claim credit. Otherwise, credit is not eligible. Important to note that here MHA order specifically provided transport facility not feasible. Therefore, it will be incumbent on you to prove that for bringing that employee, transport facility was not feasible. Otherwise, credit will not be available. So the next poll question which we are launching today is that all of you, including us, we have gone through tough times because of COVID-19. The whole economy has come to a standstill. Do you feel that government has done enough to support industry amidst COVID-19? And we are asking this more from indirect tax perspective, GST, customs laws, etc. So we have launched the poll. Please put your responses, yes, no, or not sure. We'll wait for 10 seconds and wait for you to cast your vote and then proceed further. Has government supported industry enough amidst COVID-19? Yes, no, or not sure? People are still voting. Yes, so we close the poll now and share the results. So industry doesn't seem to be very happy. 46% feel that yes, the government has done enough, but 44% feel that government has not done enough. 10% are not sure. So majority of people feel that government has not done enough. Moving ahead. So apart from GST, there are certain other extensions also, like time period for litigation under older laws. So similarly, the dates have been extended from March to September, and the last date is September 30th. Similar changes for VAT litigations also, where it was extended suo motu by a Supreme Court order. AEO certificates, their validity has been extended. Earlier, if the certificates were expiring between March to May 2020, the last date was June 30th, whereas now the period has been extended from March to September, and last date is September 30th. Moving ahead, recent news, some recent developments which are of importance to you. GST Council is considering rationalizing rates of taxes because of both COVID-19 as well as complexity in GST laws. So the government may actually reduce the number of slabs. Classification continues to be a big issue under GST. So the latest dispute which many companies are facing is sanitizers which we use in bulk or in abundance due to COVID-19. What is the GST rate on that? Is it a medical uh, is it a medicament or not? If it is qualifying as medicament, then GST rate will be 12%, otherwise 18%. Very important for service exporters. Recently, Mr. Piyush Goyal was speaking, and he made the statement that government cannot support service exporters all the time. This was his answer in context of continuation of SEIS scheme in future. So the continuation of SEIS scheme is very bleak in times to come. Due to all this rift with China, the government is seriously examining all the trade pacts with China as well as other countries. And in particular, government wants to reduce import dependence on China. DGFT is launching a new platform from July 13, 2020. For exporters, going forward, shipping bills and e-gate passes will be communicated through electronic means to them or their custom brokers. CBIC has launched a e-office program in which 500 GST and custom offices have been automated for internal file handling. Not fully related to indirect taxes, but relevant that country of origin needs to be mandatorily declared on GEM by all these marketplaces or sales which are taking place on electronic platforms. So moving ahead to precedents, and I'll hand over the session from here onwards to Himanshu, who will take it forward.
Thank you, Puneet, for taking us through the recent changes under GST. So now I would be covering the legal precedents which has recently come up. So the first issue that I would be covering, the Tran 1 related judgments. Puneet, I'm not able to change the slide.
Yeah, Himanshu, it's with you only. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So the first case is of Chagori India Retail. It's a Supreme Court case. So the question was regarding the carry forward of the transitional credit. So the High Court allowed the assessee regarding this carry forward of the transitional credit due to error and not filed by the petitioner. So the High Court directed the department to reopen the portal and accepted the Tran 1 manually. For the same, the department went to the Supreme Court and filed the case, where the Supreme Court dismissed the revenues appeal and said that the question of law is still open. The next case is of brand equity treaties. So it's again a Supreme Court case wherein the Supreme Court has stayed the High Court order. Um, so the High Court, so I would like to give a brief background of the same. So High Court has allowed the assessee to carry forward the transition credit by saying that under Article 300A, it's a vested right and it's the property of the assessee, and said that the Limitation Act will apply and the assessee can carry forward the transitional credit within 3 years, which lasts till June 30th, 2020. So the High Court also discussed regarding the technical difficulty mentioned under CGST rules. It says that the time period mentioned in CGST rules is 90 days, and if any technical difficulty faced by the taxpayers, then the same can be filed till March 2020. So the High Court held that it is a biased approach in the context of the same. The High Court also said that the time limit given under the CGST rules, it's a directory and not the mandate and not mandatory. The next case is of SKH Steel Metal Components. It's a very interesting case, and I'm privileged to share this, that this case was argued by our firm from our litigation team, and then we sailed through the same and we won this matter. So the issue was again regarding the transitional credit. This issue came after the retrospective amendment under Section 141, wherein the government, through Finance Act, there is an expression inserted in Section 141 that is within such time, and the same was also notified on May 18, 2020. So the revenue stand for that there is a amendment now in the section 140 of the CGST Act. So therefore the credit should not be allowed. So for the same, the court, the Delhi High Court said that in the brand equity case, that we have also given certain other observations regarding this vested right property and this technical difficulty, and also the same that the time limit mentioned under CGST rules, it's directory and not mandatory. So therefore the credit should not be denied to the assessee. This is important that it's a first judgment after the retrospective amendment. So as I mentioned, that High Court allowed the carry forward of the transitional credit. The next case is of Sotheby's Art Services. So in this case, again, the assessee wanted to carry forward the transition credit due to the filing. So in this case, the High Court held that the carry forward of the credit, it's an indefeasible right of the assessee. The court relied on the Edward Technologies and said the carry forward of the credits should be allowed to the assessee, and also directed the department to file the manual application of the Tran 1. The last case on the Tran 1 is SMVD Polypack. So again, it's a High Court judgment regarding the carry forward of transitional credit. The assessee was not able to file the credits due to the issues on the web page. So therefore he could not able to carry forward the credit, though the High Court directed the authorities to manually accept the Tran 1 and also reopen the portal by June 30th, 2020.
Yeah, so thank you, Manshu, for covering this Tran 1 judgment. So this whole Tran 1 controversy is not coming to an end. So multiple cases have gone to Supreme Court. Some of them have been dismissed at SLP stage. We have brand equity case which has been stayed, and we have this Bombay High Court Sotheby's which was rendered even after Supreme Court stay, and Bombay High Court did not even refer to the brand equity judgment. So this whole dispute is not coming to an end. But yes, fortunately, these have reached their final destination, which is Supreme Court, and sooner or later the Supreme Court judgment will give its verdict. We are hopeful that the court will protect the indefeasible right of the taxpayers. And important to note that except for this Bombay High Court judgment, after brand equity Supreme Court stay, a number of Delhi, Punjab and Haryana High Court judgments are coming, where they are admitting the matter but not granting any relief, and they are keeping the matters in abeyance, awaiting Supreme Court verdict in case of brand equity. Yeah.
Thank you, Puneet. So now I will be sharing the High Court judgments. So the first case is of Gimpex. So in this case, the issue was on interest regarding the original refund application or the refiled application. So in this case, the assessee filed a bank guarantee which was invoked by the department, and later on the proceedings were dropped by the tribunal. Thereafter, assessee filed a refund regarding that bank guarantee. So during the period, certain deficiencies were given by the department, which was cleared by the assessee during the period of time. And finally, he was allowed to file a fresh application, and then interest was granted to the assessee. So the issue was whether interest would be allowed from the refiled application or from the original refund application. So in that case, the High Court has held that this filing, these deficiencies are irregularities and not illegality. So the interest should be given to the assessee on the basis of the original refund application and not the refiled application.
And this is also indeed an important judgment, because number of times to avoid interest payment or to delay sanction of refund, the department issues frivolous deficiency memos. So this is an important ruling, first of its kind, that interest clock will start from the date of original refund application, and this will equally hold relevance in GST regime as well.
So now I will be covering CSTAT rulings. So the first case is Sun Ultratech. So in this case, the issue was on refund of PLA balance lying on the date of introduction of GST. So the assessee deposited certain amount in PLA and wanted to utilize for the payment of excise duty. And with the introduction of GST, he could not able to do so. So he filed a refund application with the department, which was rejected by the same by saying that the 1 year limitation period is over. So the High Court, the CSTAT held that PLA is excise duty waiting to be debited, and not the excise duty. So therefore, limitation of 1 year period should not be applicable. It also held that the cause of action regarding this refund of PLA would arise only on the introduction of GST, that is July 1, 2017, and the assessee filed the application within a 1 year period. So therefore, the refund should be applicable to the assessee.
And this is also an important ruling, because we found many of our clients, they had balances in PLA, and there was no provision for carry forward of PLA balance. So this ruling will become handy. And even if till today you have not sought any refund for the PLA balance, you can claim refund of the same, because limitation is not applicable.
This is a very interesting judgment. So this is in the case of DLF projects. So the issue was on service tax of corporate guarantee. So the assessee given corporate guarantee in favor of its sister concerns, and no consideration was charged by the assessee. However, the department said that the consideration is there, but no evidence was given by the department. So the tribunal held that taxpayer did not receive any consideration either from the bank or from its group company for giving this corporate guarantee. So in absence of consideration, the service tax cannot be applicable as it is one of the essential condition for levying the service tax.
So this dispute was raked up against many taxpayers, especially in NCR. So the department's contention was that even though there is no consideration, there is a benefit which is flowing to the group companies, and the department was treating corporate guarantee at par with the bank guarantee. So whatever bank charges for providing bank guarantee, that was treated as a notional consideration. So this is a right ruling, and this will become relevant for all the taxpayers having this litigation. But yes, this ruling will not apply in GST regime, because in GST regime there is a clear deeming fiction that supply without consideration, when it happens between related persons, that will still be subject to GST. So the taxpayers need to undertake an assessment that whether it constitutes supply at first place or not, and if yes, then GST will become applicable irrespective of consideration.
So moving on. Just a minute, some technical error is there. Yeah. So the next ruling is on Nuclear Power Corporation of India. So again, it's a very interesting issue. So this is regarding the import of drawings and designs exigible to both customs duty and service tax or not. So the assessee imported the documents along with the drawings and design and entered into a service agreement with the overseas supplier. So the assessee paid the duty on the drawing and design in the form of goods by including the value of drawings and design. Later on, the department ordered the same and demanded the service tax under the consulting engineering services. So the court held that the agreement entered with the overseas supplier clearly says that it's a service agreement, and levy of the customs duty by including the value of the same does not change the character of the import of service. Uh, the tribunal also held that the provisions of the Finance Act as well as the Customs Act are clearly distinguishable applicable. So therefore, the service tax needs to be payable on the import of drawings and designs. So now I would be covering appellate authority for advance ruling. So the first case is of Ordnance Factory Bhandara. So this is a unit that is a functioning under the Ministry of Defense, and it is engaged in the commercial explosive which ultimately used for the manufacture of arms and ammunition. So during a certain period that the assessee was recovering certain amounts on the liquidated damages and also incurring certain expenditure on which ITC should be available or not. So under GST laws, if the services are provided by the state government, central government that are not taxable under GST. So the first question was whether the activity undertaken by the applicant, whether it is on behalf of it qualifies as a government or not. So the authority held that the functions performed by the applicant are on behalf of the president, and therefore it qualifies as the government under the GST law. So therefore, the recoveries made by the applicant should not be exigible to GST. So the authority held that GST should not be applicable on the liquidated damages and certain other recoveries, like there is a canteen run in the factory premises, so recovery of the same should not be taxable. One important point that the assessee also provides the various other services like renting of hall and some other recovering some amount on certain activities, so that also not exigible to GST. Further, it also held that the input services related to such recoveries are also not eligible as credit, because of the reason that the output recovery is not exigible to tax. And also there are the expenses also incurred in the context of maintenance of garden inside the factory premises, and also the medicines were provided to the employees. So therefore the authority held that ITC should be available on such services as the same is in the course of furtherance of business, and also it is an obligation on the employer to provide the medicines, etc., to the employees. So in our view, that tax on the liquidated damages, yes, correctly held by the authority that it should not be applicable, and further the ITC on garden and this medicines, etc., should be allowed to the SSE. The next ruling is JSW Energy. So it's a very interesting ruling. So in this case, the issue was on the coal sent to the job worker for generation of electricity would covered under the job work provisions or not. So in this case, the principal was sending coal to the appellant for generation of electricity, which was ultimately used by the principal for manufacturing of final product, that is steel. So the authority held that the coal supplied for generation of electricity fall under the scope of the job work, as the treatment of process is undertaken on the goods belonging to other person. Second, it also held that the receipt of electricity by the principal satisfy the condition given under section 143(1)(a), and the benefit of this should be allowed. So when the coal is supplied by the principal to the job worker, so no tax should be applicable. However, when the charges were recovered by the appellant for this job work activity, then GST should be applicable. So in our view, that the ruling is correct. So the next ruling is also very interesting ruling. It's a CMS Info Systems. So in this case, the issue was on ITC on cash carry vans. So the assessee is engaged in the ATM cash replenishment, and he carries the money from one place to another. So the issue was on whether the ITC on such motor vehicles would be allowed to the assessee or not. So the court interpreted the term goods and said that money transported by the cash carry vans is, first, it cannot be considered as it cannot be usable as a legal tender and or for settling of any obligation by the appellant. And further, it said that the money transported by the cash carry vans amounts to transportation of goods, and therefore the ITC must be allowed on the cash carry vans. So moving on, this is the case of Hitachi Power Europe. In this case, the issue was on GST implications on the salary cost of expat employees. So in this case, the head office is located in Germany, and there is a project office located in India for executing the work. So the foreign office sends the debit note for making an accounting entry in the project office regarding the salary of employees, and the certain obligations like TDS, etc., under Income Tax Act were also undertaken by the project office. So the issue was on whether the GST would be applicable on such debit note, etc., or not. So in this case, the authority held that the project office is an extension of the head office only, and there is a clearly employer-employee relationship exists between the project office and head office, basically the expat house of the employees of the head office. So GST should not be applicable in terms of Schedule 3 entry, which says that services provided in the course of employer-employee relationship.
So this indeed is also very important ruling, and it's a vexed issue. So we have one set of rulings like Columbia Asia, etc., which says that the management sitting at the head office, they provide services to branches, etc. And then we have another set of rulings, especially in respect of project offices. And this is not the first one. There are earlier rulings as well, which says that the employee is the employee of the company only, and no such service or supply takes place. So again, this is a big disputed issue. But yes, we always suggest that if ITC is available, it's better to treat this as supply and charge GST. But yes, if ITC is not available, then you should litigate. And the correct legal position is that, which is duly supported by jurisprudence under previous laws, that this does not constitute to be a service or a supply.
Thank you, Vineet. The next judgment is Cartex. So the issue was on the GST on maintenance and repair contract. The foreign company supplied the goods to an Indian customer and later on entered into a maintenance and repair contract with the customer located in India, and supplies the services by creating a fixed establishment near the customer's location. So the issue was on whether the GST would be payable by the Indian customer as a recipient under reverse charge mechanism, or it should be charged by the Indian entity where this fixed establishment placed near the customer location under forward charge. So this is also important that the foreign company also deputes the employees to perform such services and certain other like supplying goods, etc., from that fixed establishment only. So the authority held that the Indian customer is not required to pay GST on such maintenance and repair contract services, because the services are performed by the Indian establishment, which is a fixed establishment near the location of the customer, that should be liable to pay the GST under forward charge. So the next issue, the next case is Shri Dipesh Anil Kumar Naik. So the issue was on GST on sale of developed plot of land. So in this case, the assessee has a vacant land and it it transform into with the basic amenities like water supply, electricity supply, and it undertakes certain activity on the vacant land, and then sells the land to the sells the plots to the individual buyers, which they subsequently build their houses or villas, etc. So the issue was on whether this will be considered as a sale of land or it's a sale of construction. So it's a supply of construction services. So the authority held that the sale of developed plot and sale of the land both are different activity, and sale of developed plot tantamount to rendering of construction services under Schedule 2. So therefore, the GST would be applicable on the same under construction services.
So this ruling is totally wrong, because sale of land is outside the purview of GST, and when development of plots take place, so like internal development in an area like street lighting, sewerage systems, etc. So the plot remains a piece of land only, and there's ample jurisprudence under service tax law on this point only, that sale of developed plots amounts to sale of land only and not construction service.
Yes. So the next case is Mansi Oil and Grains. So in this case, the assessee went through the liquidation proceedings. So the issue was on whether the GST on the sale of assets by the liquidator during this liquidation proceeding, so whether the GST would be applicable by the liquidator or not. So the authority held that the sale of assets by the liquidator amounts to supply of goods, and the liquidator needs to take a separate registration, and the GST should be applicable on the sale of such assets. So in our view, the ruling is correct that the liquidator needs to take a separate registration and then discharge the liability accordingly. The next ruling on Sterlite Technologies. So the issue was on merchanting sales. So I'll give a brief background on the merchanting sales. It's like the person located in India purchases the goods from a person located, say, in country A, and directly dispatches the good to its customer located in country B. So the authority held that regarding the GST implications on the purchase of goods from a vendor located in country A, tax should not be applicable because the goods are not physically moved from country A to India. So therefore, no tax is applicable. Further, on the sale of goods from the Indian customer to the overseas buyer, so the authority held that this will not amount to export of services, as the goods are not moved from India to outside India. So therefore, it's an interstate supply and IGST should be applicable on the same.
So this is totally an incorrect ruling because Schedule 3 of CGST Act clearly provides that all these merchanting sales where the goods do not come within India are outside the purview of GST. Such transactions do not qualify supply. It was very, very shocking to see that neither this point was referred by the applicant nor even taken up by AR on its own. So if you see so many advanced rulings, triple ARs, etc. are coming, but most of them are revenue oriented, and many of them do not consider the legal provisions in totality or correct perspective.
So the next case is Sri Mohit Rameshpal Gupta. So this is a interesting ruling and definitely relevant for automobile industry. So this is on the classification of fuel conversion CNG parts. The assessee was engaged in the manufacture of CNG parts, which helps in converting the vehicle from petrol to CNG. So important to note that the CNG parts in itself are classifiable under Chapter 84, and the court, the authority held that these are classifiable under 8708, which covers the parts and accessories of motor vehicle, and 28% GST must be applicable.
So all these fuel conversion kits, these are used in the engine, and parts of engine, they are classifiable under chapter heading 8409. Again, there is ample jurisprudence under pre-GST law, and there are advanced rulings in GST law also dealing with identical product, as per which chapter heading should be 8409. So again, this ruling is incorrect.
Correct. So moving on. So this is the case of ID Fresh Food. It's a very interesting issue and the controversial issue in the last month, which is on the classification of whole wheat and Malabar Parota. So the assessee was engaged in the ready-to-cook food and supply of ready-to-cook food. So the assessee wanted to classify the same under the entry khakra, plain chapati or roti, so which attracts 5% GST rate, and says that and said that the 18% GST rate should not be applicable. However, the authority said that the parotas should not be classifiable under the said three expressions because those are completely cooked preparations, and parota requires the further processing for human consumption, say heating, etc. So therefore, the same should not be classifiable under the said entry attracting lower rate of GST and must be classifiable under heading 2106.
And you would have read about this ruling, and again a classification issue, patently incorrect. There's an entry for bread, and based on the jurisprudence revolving bread, all this Malabar paratha, which is effectively a bread only, these should be exempt from GST. So you will see a lot of classification issues are emerging in GST, and mainly for the reason that government has kept so many slabs of tax rates.
So the next advanced ruling is J. Jalaram Enterprises. So this is on the classification of popcorn. So in this case, the assessee was engaged in the, is engaged in the manufacture of popcorn. So he procures the corn and undertake various processes like heating, and thereafter add certain spices like salt, turmeric powder to make it palatable, and packed in a container and which bears the brand name. So the assessee said the same should be classifiable as corn only, and not as corn only and classifiable under chapter 10, and should not be classifiable under any other chapter. So the authority held that the same cannot be classifiable as corn for the reason that the corn loses its characteristics and cannot be said that it will cover under chapter 10. So the correct classification for the popcorn is heading 1904, which says that prepared food obtained by roasting cereal. So therefore 18% GST should be applicable. So in our view, this ruling is correct. The next ruling is Uttarakhand Forest Development Corporation. So this is on the RCM applicability on transportation services. So the assessee in the state of Uttarakhand responsible for the transporting the forest produce from one place to another. So for the same, it himself files this transit 2.1 regarding this form. The assessee also hires the individual truck owners for transportation of the same, and the same will be transported under this form, which is equivalent to a consignment, which contains the details as of the consignment note, like details of the goods and vehicle number, etc. So the issue was on whether the RCM would be applicable or not, because these are individual unregistered tax transporters. So the authority held that the purpose of issuing the consignment note is to transfer the lien of goods, and it is the responsibility of the transporter to safe delivery of the goods to the consignee. So the authority held that the document raised by the Uttarakhand Forest Development is equivalent to a consignment note, and therefore the RCM should be applicable on the transportation service. Okay, so this is the last ruling. This is of Liberty Translines. I wanted to share the view that on the Uttarakhand Forest Development, in our view, the ruling is correct. The authority rightly held that the GST should be applicable under RCM. Coming to the last ruling, that is on the Liberty Translines. So again, the issue was on the classification of GTA services. So in this case, the customer has awarded a contract to a GTA service provider, and that GTA service provider in turn subcontracted the same to the applicant regarding this transportation of service. So the GTA service, the GTA, which is POSCO, and the applicant both are raising the consignment note for the same transaction. So the authority held that two consignment notes cannot be issued for a single transaction. So therefore the same shall not be, so the consignment note issued by the applicant should not be considered as a GTA service provider, rather it should be considered as a hiring of vehicles. So that's all from our side regarding this legal precedent. So now we can move forward to the question answer round.
Yeah, so thank you, Himanshu. So we have actually not got any questions. So with this, we come to the end of this session, and you will see that so many rulings have started coming in GST. So our legal precedent section was very long today. We again thank you for joining in large number, and our sincere apologies for technical glitches in today's session, which was totally beyond our control. So it seemed to have been working like GST network only. So we'll make sure that our session is smooth from next time onwards. So thank you again, and we look forward to meet you in August edition of Roundup. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Puneet.
Yeah, thank you, Manshu. Yeah.